Welcome back to Joel Sports Shreds, and today we are going to say why I disagree with Geoff Wilson's CT scanning arguments in his latest cards on the table. We're going to run the randomizer at the very end for this box of cards that was highlighted 2 weeks ago in the video that talked about hobby burnout. So if you want to see all of the cards that are here, make sure to go check that video out and stay tuned till the end for you to see who the winner of this giveaway is, and we're going to run the next one as well. This one will be ran on Labor Day. The winner will be announced. We have football cards, basketball cards here, actually is the two, some baseball, a little bit of soccer, hockey, and racing as well. A lot of different things, and the hockey has the most, but the football has the hits, y'all. So stay looking at that. Baseball's loaded. No repeat athletes except for a couple in racing because I'm just getting out of like the couple fat packs that I had there. So just stay tuned and watch all of this glorious cards revealed, and know you can win by commenting on this video. And I'd love to hear your opinion on the CT scanning that is talked about in the hobby. If you agree with my takes, Geoff Wilson's, anybody else's, your own maybe, would love to have that. So comment, be a subscriber, hit the like button, and then if you live in the Continental, nailed it, Continental 48. I'll ship these cards out 2 free to one of the winners. So I just am so grateful that I get to talk. I try to do these things. It's kind of a podcast with a rip, except for this is a giveaway where I'm just showing cards. Because, y'all, we haven't had much innovation in this YouTube sports cards hobby. A lot of it's just the talking hands and showing cards. And I think there's great podcasts, but they don't have the visual content that's as good. So I'm trying to do more of this. Let me know how you feel about it. Different topics that are relevant to the hobby while showing cards and enjoying that as well. So without further ado, I'm going to start showing these cards here. And this is, I think, the best stack here. Football. We're getting ready for it too, y'all. All of it to be said. Let's start chatting about not CTC to start. Well, that's also the wrong that's the wrong one to say. CT scanning. I'm going to start with Geoff Wilson, and I'm going to just put that guy over the bus. I'm not throwing him under the bus at all. I am so grateful to Geoff Wilson. There are a lot of people that make comments about him, but the man is the most legitimate voice we have in the hobby. He brings a level of professionalism. He brings a level of moving forward that is so exciting in this hobby, and I'm grateful for him. I listen to his podcast. I listen to the that's actually mainly how I consume this content. It's actually not as much the visual on YouTube, but he has his own podcast and he has the Sports Cards Investor podcast as well. Cards on the Table, kind of just 3 or 4 different topics they talk about each week. They do the hottest cards. All of that is, I'm just grateful that we have him in the hobby, because a lot of, if you try to get content from a podcast about sports cards, it's rather Bush League, is what I would say. And to have him, make a huge hobby shop that's kind of the future of what this could be, to be a voice that is talking about things that other people are maybe doing more, not under the table, but not over the table, if that makes sense. He just brings that over the table. So, first of all, shout out to him. This is not meant at all to be a hit piece, though I disagree with his points off of it. So, I highly recommend you subscribe to Sports Cards Investor and listen to the one that says CT scanning, that they had that as the primary thing. It was this past Thursday that it was released. So he talks about a lot of different points and actually has the 2 other contributors, Teapot and Doug, that offer pushback. And I'm going to be very much in line with them. So not, again, going rogue, trying to be a clickbait, hot take, just talk about drama. I'm really trying to have a conversation here because I think it's an important one to have, which also, important to note, this is a numbered card out of Topps Heritage. It's out of $9.99. You can see it in the top there. Josh Bell. I love this card. It looks so nice. All right, so the first point that I disagree with that he made is, number one, he kind of talked about price being something that would make a lot of this irrelevant. So he's saying, like, certainly some of these products like Top Series 1, the hobby box is not the highest cost in comparison to Flawless and in comparison to, Dynasty, any of those. And he's kind of saying that so many of these lower products are not necessarily worth going and spending the money to get scanned, right? He says that the company that's kind of been highlighted, again, not saying their name to promote them, but they're like $75 a pack to know what it is to use their services, right? All of that sounds good in the modern time of this all. But the reality is that a company could very easily have their own, which was talked about in the podcast as well, right? Not breaking a thought there, breaking new thought there. But a company could have this, and if they are having a lot of hobby boxes come into their organization for whatever reason, if they're breaking, if they're reselling, any of that, the larger a scale is of any operation, the better the margin is for them to do anything. So, it would maybe be not as cost efficient if they were just doing a single box of, one of the lower end hobby boxes. For sure. Totally get that. But if we're talking hundreds and they have a process then to have just a large scalability, they are then having more information. They're getting probably a better look at better cards through that CT scan, and that then allows them to do a lot more with it. Shout out Christopher Morel Moja right there. So I think it was a little too focused on kind of maybe the current situation for a smaller community out of 2021 there. And so the scalability that could easily happen with so many different companies in this hobby is something I think that's a little bit more noteworthy to be talking about. Number 2, he talked about release day and kind of how breakers wouldn't have the time to necessarily ship it off. Well, again, if somebody has their own, that time that they would need is significantly less, especially if they get the product in a day early, bada boom, stay the night, make it happen. So that part was a little bit, I think, not the best logic. I'm going to move the hockey cards up here because ultimately somebody could very easily still get what they need out of that dynamic if they had it in their own. He's talking about no Cards HQ employee would send it to this company. But again, that's the very minuscule framework of the current situation. And let's just say, though, in general, release day prices would probably be higher because or would be less affected is the better way to say it, because they would have less people. I mean, just the idea, the longer a box is out now and has the chance to be scanned, the more likely it is to be scanned, right? That's just pure math. So release day probably still has some safety in it, especially if you're breaking with somebody you trust, right? But in that, there is this idea that even if that is true, let's say people would start to say, all right, release day is the day to get product. Well, certainly supply and demand is a factor in the hobby all the time. And if more people trust the product early on, the release day prices would go up even more than they already are because obviously people want to enjoy the product first. There's the new chase. There's the different kind of human dynamics of what we desire. But if it also was to be paired with more of a assurance of quality, of getting what you're paying for, all of those dynamics, those prices would go up, which is a negative for the buyer in this. And again, I'm not saying a breaking company would be like, this is when we're going to exploit them, but just the market moving in such a way, release day prices going up, and then ultimately having wax be lower in value is kind of two dynamics that are tough for us, the non-breaker, the non-seller in this dynamic. So I didn't love that because, number one, again, I think release day still could be easily affected by people who would have a scanner right there. You don't have to mail it to get it to happen. There's not only one CT scanner in the world that all of humanity would have access to. But then also just the effect it could have on release day prices and that being higher would be a negative for me or anybody. I love making release day videos to show people what they can buy. It's one of the most successful videos you can make as a YouTube content creator. And so for that to go up, it just makes my margin of making this a dollar in, dollar out type of situation harder and harder. So that's the second point. Let me look quick here. All right, this is the big one that I really disagreed with. And he said breakers want the hits for their customers. That was kind of his big point of hey, why would somebody look and scan a box, see a card, and then potentially like not give it to their customers? Teapot kind of pushed back and said maybe they give it to a whale, so you would redirect it in a way that would be beneficial to you. But I think he's going about this with a view of different people having more of a long-term approach instead of the short-term. He's trying to argue that your brand would be better if you're the company that gets all the hits. Well, number one, there are a ton of people in this hobby that would say the hits are random. Like, if we really believe in the distribution of this product, it's not that, there we go, Theo John, rookie right there. Not rookie, first Bowman Auto is the better way to say that. Not numbered, by the way. If we really believe it's random, let's say Cards HQ gets a hit today, well, their likelihood of getting a hit tomorrow is the same as it always is, percentage-wise. The same as it would be for any other company. So kind of this logic of like, oh, this breaker gets all the hits. Like, I get the kind of cachet, and there certainly are people who would be like, yo, I want to keep going to them. You know, I think Backyard, that has a little bit of a impact on their buyers, right? That it's like they have all of the hits. EJ Liddell here to 150 on the back right there. Against the Gopher, by the way. Just images removed there for non-licensing. I just think that a lot of folks who are kind of level-minded would say, it's not that I'm now thinking Cards HQ is going to have more hits than another breaker, right? I think people break for somebody, with somebody, because they appreciate the style, they appreciate maybe the convenience that they offer, they trust the process, you know, all of those things of handling the cards, kind of if there was to be a problem, they would feel confident in it being handled in the appropriate way. Like, I don't know how many folks are looking at a breaker and being like, they get all the hits. So people kind of come in and know, like, hey, this is roughly, the risk I'm taking. I don't blame my breaker or necessarily give them credit for the cards that come out of that pack. So I felt like that was a little bit of a kind of logical error in my opinion. And certainly there would be some people who would, let's say they get 100 boxes or something, right? Well, if they pull the 3 boxes that have the biggest cards, this one's cool here, an old school Gary Payton. If they pull the 3 ones that have the biggest cards and just open them themselves and then sell those hits, they will probably have a better return on investment on the other boxes that would, they can just break the way they normally would, and they would be able to then sell them at the price. But the ones that they pulled, they got higher value selling the big card out of that one box than if they would have just simply broke it and given it to their customers. So I just think that logic there, again, not what I would say is fully true in all facets of the hobby. And that's, one of the things that I think somebody like Geoff, who has so much more, how do I want to say this? It's a positive thing. He has so many more connections, so much more prominence. Nailed it. Prominence in the hobby. He sees a certain part of it really, really well, much better than I do. But I see it in a different way because I don't have connections to all of these breakers. I don't have connections to influencers, unless some of these guys on YouTube that I've gotten to make videos with. Like, that's it, man. And he has almost like too much of his head in the forest to see all the individual trees. Is that the way you say it? And I actually am so grateful he has that approach because it comes in handy so often. But when he made the comment at the very end about there are so many folks who have high ethics that do the things the right way in this hobby, I think he was in the forest a little deep there because he knows all the people that he is good friends with and he trusts them. And certainly they're there. They're there. That's always a funny thing to say. But the reality is, on Cards on the Table, almost every week they're talking about a scandal. They're talking about something that went not according to plan in this hobby. And so even if that happens to the most minuscule detail, right? Like, let's say every weekend some incident happens at a show. You know how many shows there are in this country every weekend? Like, it's an insane amount. Like, certainly, we'll go soccer next. certainly that's like not at all that noteworthy of a thing, that it's just like one incident happens in a country where hundreds of shows happen. Maybe hundreds is a little hot, but you know what I'm saying. Gatherings of people with cards, certainly at card shops, But the reality is us as consumers are weekly hearing about something happening. And that does something to the perceived value to these cards that have no utility. And what I mean by that is this card can't make me a sandwich. This card can't drive me to work. This card can't brush my teeth even. And so the value of this is all prescribed by the people in the hobby that care about it. So this Daniel Munoz card, in a lot of ways, is the exact same cost to make as a one-of-one Victor Wembanyama. Obviously they put a lot more resources into the point, but the material, the imaging, all of that is basically the same. The difference is us buyers say Wembanyama matters a whole lot more than this random rookie of, the World Cup here and the rookies that were happening there. So, all of that to be said, I think ethics is important to highlight that there are a ton of great people in this hobby because we do focus so much on the negative. We'll go hockey next. But for us to not acknowledge that there is a fear in a lot of collectors that the hobby is filled with people, or there's moments where they could be taken advantage of, is a little bit of a missing the mark, I think, on the reality of what the true situation is. Okay, last point here. Let me pause. The last point that Geoff made was that there's a bigger impact on this for old vintage than anything else. Which, he's kind of conceding that there is a point that is problematic, right? So then it's how much of a line is that, right? Like, where does it cut off? Is it, boxes that are $1,000? Is it boxes that are $100? Like, whatever it might be, it's an interesting point for him to kind of just say that the higher it is, obviously the worse, but like, where does that really hit? In old vintage, there are a lot of cards that are the peak of the market, okay? They're the highest sold cards, they're the ones that, if you're looking at this hobby, have the most market cap in them. And so if those cards were to start to get affected in any way because there's a lack of trust, right? Wax goes down, then the cards inside the boxes goes down because then people would just be buying the cheap wax and selling it for those cards and making a big profit, right? When wax goes down, it does affect the singles market because otherwise people would just really take advantage of that. In that, when, let's say, the highest cards in this hobby go down, it does affect other cards. It doesn't necessarily affect this Jake G card, but if a LeBron rookie goes down, the LeBron silver refractor from this year's Prism will probably have an effect as well. It's one of those things that the rising tide raises all ships, but when the ship starts to kind of go down, it also affects all of the other cards. So there is a potential for some of these higher cards to be able to be affecting things that are actually in the hands of us average Joel collectors. Like what I did there. You don't just need to keep Joe getting all the press in this game. And so I, again, want to say, shout out Geoff Wilson. I have never been to Cards HQ, but I would love to go one day. That'd be super fun. Zero shade, and if anybody felt like I was throwing shade, let me know, because I certainly wasn't trying to do that. I think it's awesome that he talks about topics and gives us, as collectors, kind of an idea of what a national conversation about this could look like. He does that better than anyone else in this space. I have said before on this channel, I'm a big sports cards nonsense guy. Mike Giuseppe, Jesse Gibson, they're awesome. I think I appreciate their voices more, their style more. They have the Ringer behind them, which is a huge platform, and a lot of people don't actually access that because they get into this more through the investor flipping on YouTube kind of pathway, and because of that, you then have less people that are actually kind of moving and shaking because of their voice. Like, Geoff catches so many people, and I think that's only going to go up because how to say this in a good way. I'm just going to throw it out, but I don't mean it at all negatively. He's very palatable, and some people will kind of say that in a negative way. I mean that very much as a positive, that folks can easily kind of listen to him, understand what he's saying, whether you're new in this hobby or a veteran. He has an awareness of both sides really well. I mean, he wrote the Sports Cards for Dummies book, so he's clearly got a ear there, but his connections and his ability to relate to people who collected as a kid and now, I mean, that's significant. He's very much a voice that is going to be helpful to get this across, this hobby, to that 10 times kind of number that Fanatics is talking about. Certainly, if you look at his podcast, man, he gets a lot of the big names. They see the platform that he has created and shout out to him. It's successful, and so folks are going to be using that as a method. Arena Club, right? Like they have him pick cards for their slab packs. That's very intentional because he has the access of a lot of folks. Some people, not totally. But those people are pretty bought in as well. That's a checklist there. It's not like anyone's going to leave because of Geoff Wilson. That would be like, oh, I don't appreciate maybe a corporate approach more. I like the under the table. Well, they're already here. They're locked in forever. So let me know your thoughts either about Geoff Wilson. That ending really landed on him. Or CT scanning. I am not that as scared of it personally. I hope they, in the future, start to actually change the boxes. I say all of that logic, and I say that's a big problem, but I think that the world's going to figure this out in a way that is, potentially not as challenging. I, again, didn't think the logic was accurate, but it's not something that's changing how I interact with this. I love this for what it is. If it does affect it slightly negative, I'll figure out a way to just rebound and keep this channel going because it's really fun to do this content, and I don't want to stay in the drama of it or the potential negatives. That's not super fun, but it is nice to think and talk and have good conversation. That's enjoyable to me. But if it takes away from these cards, then what are we doing here? All right. Thanks for watching, y'all. Until next time, comment below any of your takes, and make sure you're a subscriber and like the video so you can be eligible for winning this one. Ran on Labor Day. Until next time, y'all, congrats to the person who's going to win next, and keep ripping. Peace. All right, and we are running the randomizer machine here. We'll copy and paste that URL from the How to Avoid Hobby Burnout video. We will filter out duplicate users, and we don't need to add anything in terms of comment replies. We'll do that math and see that hey, that's funny, 9 was the number. 9 unique comments. Thanks to all 9 that entered. Good luck as your names roll through here, and let's see lucky card pulls. Instead of buying hobby boxes, I buy mostly retail and singles. My LCS also sells mystery boxes with guaranteed hits and assortments of packs and sup. Supplies is definitely what he said there, but I like that it ended with sup. Lucky card pulls. Congratulations. Please email me at joelsportscards@gmail.com so I can send this box off to you. Until next time, y'all, keep ripping, and please enter this giveaway as well so that you have a chance to win the boxes that were just shown. And by boxes, I mean cards. Until next time, y'all, peace.